Welcome to the Flex Rental Solutions webinar. Today we're going to be talking about suggestions and suggestion types and the different ways that you can utilize those in your Flex system. So to start, let's open up just one of our inventory models in this system, a MacBook 15-inch Retina. And then we'll go to the Suggestions tab of this inventory model. And we'll just look at some of the very basics here first. You can add things to the Suggestions tab of any inventory model, and anything that's in the Suggestions tab will pop up a suggestions window when you add that model to a quote. So let's show how that works. Whenever we send out this Apple MacBook 15-inch Retina, we want to suggest a few adapters. So we'll drag and drop these adapters, and we'll just suggest a quantity of one each. Then we might want to suggest a few accessories as well, like an Apple mouse, a wireless keyboard, maybe even a laptop stand. So now that those are in the Suggestions tab for this inventory model, if we go to a quote and add this 15-inch Retina MacBook to the quote, then you'll see the suggestions window pop up asking which items you want to add. You'll check which items you want to add. You can even adjust the quantities if you want. If you want to select all, you can just click the all header and everything will be added. You can also change how this will add. Do you want this to add as the next sibling, which means it will just add as the next line item? Do you want to add it as a child to the inventory model? Or do you want it to add in the default sort mode? And we'll look at what that means a little bit later on. For these, let's say we want to add them as a child. You'll notice that if you have a lot of items on here, that might be a little bit inconvenient to have to go through and change each and every one. And this one here, whether or not you want to include these items in the price of the original inventory model. You can go through and check which ones you want, or you could click the header. But there's an easier way that you can make these default to a certain thing each time, and that will be through suggestion types. So really quick, let's just click accept and see how these add. You can see that they've added as a child to the MacBook Pro. I haven't input any pricing in this system, so we can't really see how the pricing worked out. But if we go back and look, you can always go back and look at the suggestions by clicking on the cogwheel of the inventory model and then clicking suggestions. And remember, I added it saying that it's not included in the price. So if we had a default price for the MacBook of maybe $40 or $50 for a day rate, and then we had each of these adapters at maybe a $5 day rate, then because I did not include them in the price, then all of these prices would show up and be calculated in the total of the quote. If I had checked included in price, then all of these would just show up as 0, even if they had a default price. But since they don't have a default price right now, they're just showing up as 0 anyway. So that's on a very basic level how suggestions work. But let's dig a little bit deeper and look at suggestion types. Right here under this suggestions column in the suggestions tab, this is where you can add a suggestion type by clicking on the little pencil icon, and then it will pop up the different suggestion types that you have in your system. And really what suggestion types are is a group of attributes that this item will take on whenever it's being added as a suggestion. So just like when we had to choose whether it's adding as a child or whether it's included in the price, you can have those things automatically be set through a suggestion type. Another thing that a suggestion type will do is each suggestion type that you have set up as a suggestion to this model will show up as a tab in the suggestions window. And so let's set up a few suggestion types so that we can show how this works. If we go to the inventory menu, then click on Suggestion Types. This is where you can see all of the suggestion types that you have in your system. There's a few set up by default, so if you're a new user to Flex and you haven't set up any of these yet, then you'll see a few. I believe it's signal cable, speaker cable, and power cable. There might be power as well. Adapters is one that I just set up before this webinar. So if you double click on any suggestion type, then you can see you can edit the name, you can give it a code. A lot of people ask what the code is for in Flex. This is really just a way for Flex to internally reference this particular suggestion type. You'll see codes pop up in quite a few areas like sales tax rules and custom rows and things like that. Sometimes there's a very clear and obvious way that Flex uses the code, and sometimes there's not. Just as a good rule of thumb, I always try to add a code, and it's typically just something simple like an abbreviation of the name. So whether or not you ever see where this is used in Flex, I still like to add it just as a rule of thumb. You can see that this suggestion type will always be included in the price of the parent model and will always add as a child. And it's not required. And we'll show what a required suggestion type looks like in just a minute. So let me click Update to save those changes. And so if we go back to the inventory model that we were adding suggestions to, then I can click on the pencil icon and add these adapters as an adapter suggestion type. So now every time that I add this model to a quote and the suggestions window pops up, then it will, if I add these two adapters, it will automatically take on the attributes of my adapter's suggestion type, which is included in price yes, and add as a child, and required as no. Let's set up another suggestion type for these accessories. We'll go back to suggestion types, and again, that was on the inventory menu and suggestion types. Let's click New Suggestion Type. And we could either just call this accessories in general, or you could get as specific as you want with each of your suggestion types. And I might call this, not even computer, but let's call it laptop accessories. So I could have a suggestion type for laptop accessories. I could have one for desktop computer accessories. I could have one for lighting accessories. I could have one for audio accessories, etc. And so that's really just up to you and how specific you want to get. We'll give it a code. And the note is really just a way to just explain a little bit further what this might be. You don't have to put anything there. Let's say that it is included in the price because they're most likely going to be lower priced accessories, so we'll just include it in the price of the computer. And we'll add them as a child as well. And required is no. You'll have to reload your tab by doing the right click and clicking reload so that you can see the new suggestion type that you created. Now let's go back to the inventory model and we will assign these accessories. You might also have to reload the inventory model page so that the new data that you just created will appear. So we'll assign our accessories to the laptop accessories suggestion type. So now that we have all of the suggestions for the MacBook Pro 15-inch with Retina assigned to suggestion types, let's go back to the quote. We'll delete this and start from scratch and see the difference now when we add this MacBook Retina to the quote. Now we have one tab for the adapter suggestion type, and you can see that they are automatically going to add as child and included in price now. And another tab for laptop accessories. And we set that up also as child and included in price. So I could go through and check which ones I want. And everything is saved, so if I go back to any of those tabs, it'll still show as checked. So let's just say that I want the HDMI adapter, a mouse, and a keyboard. Click Accept, and all of those have been added. So this is a very basic way to set up suggestions for an inventory model. There's a couple other ways that we can do it as well, and let's look at some of those. I've set up an example in the system for suggestions for a high-end projector, because most of the time these larger scale projectors don't come with a lens, and you can interchange a lens. You could send out a short throw or a long throw lens. And so when you send out this projector, you always want to be able to suggest a variety of different lenses. So in the suggestion tabs for this Barco W18 projector, let's add all the different types of lenses that we have. So we'll just drag and drop them into the suggestion tabs with a quantity of 1. And now we want to add a new suggestion type that we can apply to these lenses. Let's go back to Inventory and Suggestion Types. Let me close a few of these tabs so we don't get too crowded. And let's add a new suggestion type that we're going to call Lenses. For this, we'll probably say that it's not included in the price because lenses can typically be a little bit expensive. So let's say that it's not included in the price. We'll add it as a child, and now we're going to click Required Yes. What this is going to do is require the user to choose at least one of the suggestions from this suggestion type. So let me show you how that works. Now that we've added the lenses suggestion type, let's close the Barco projector model and reopen it so that it will let us choose from the new data that we just created. We'll click the pencil and assign each lens to the lenses suggestion type. And so now let's go back to our quote and add this Barco W18. The suggestions window will pop up, and the first thing that you might notice now is that the tab for this suggestion type is shaded in red, and it pops up a little note that says you must select at least one of the options from this tab. Because you never want to send the projector just on its own without a lens. That's not going to be useful on the show. So let's say that we want to select this one, and maybe we actually want to send a couple lenses just in case you want to try a few different things on the show site and see what each lens looks like. But as long as you're choosing at least one, then this requirement will be fulfilled. Let's actually see what happens when we try to exit this screen without choosing one. If I click Accept, it will pop up this window warning saying that you must select at least one. If you try to cancel out, it will again give you that warning, but then you can close the suggestions dialog, so I'll click Yes, but the cogwheel will stay red. And that's just saying that there are unfulfilled required suggestions for this model. So I'll just click the cogwheel, go to Suggestions, it'll pop up that window again, and then I'll choose one. And then the red goes away. So those are required suggestions. You could set that up for any variety of items that always need to have at least one of the suggestions go with it. The last thing I kind of want to look at is how you can have suggestions work with contents when you're building maybe a virtual package or something like that. So let's look at, actually haven't created that item yet, so let's quickly create a new inventory item that we're just going to call speaker package. We won't fill in all the details right now, but we'll just say that this is a virtual package, which gives us model container set to yes, which means that we can put things into the contents tab, which will be items that are automatically added anytime I put this speaker package on a quote. And then virtual item is set to yes, just to say that it's not a physical inventory item. So just for the sake of example, let's give this a day rate price. We'll say it's $200. And then you'll see on the Contents tab, like I said, these are things that will automatically add to the quote anytime that I put the speaker package on a quote. It won't pop up a window asking if you want to add it, it will just automatically add it. So let's say as part of the speaker package, I always want 2 speakers to go with it. That's just a given, it's always going to add the 2 speakers. And anything that you put in the Contents tab will automatically add as a child to the model, and it will also automatically be included in the price. But let's say that every time we send out this package, maybe you don't necessarily want to send the same mixer every time, and maybe you don't necessarily want to send the exact same lengths of cable every time. So these are things that you can put in the Suggestions tab, and the Contents and Suggestions will work together when you add this speaker package to a quote. So let's say that we want to suggest either a Mackie mixer or a Yamaha mixer, and we want to suggest either an XLR 10-foot or a 50-foot or a 25-foot. And again, I could go back to my suggestion types now and create very specific suggestion types for the speaker package suggestions. Or I could just use the general suggestion types that are already set up, like signal cable. I might want to create a new one called mixers though. So let's do that really quick. We'll create a new suggestion type for mixers. And let's say for the sake of this example as well, we will include it in the price because it's going to be part of the package. It will add as a child because it's a package. And it will have to be required. And in fact, let's change this to speaker package mixers, just so this one will only be used specifically on speaker packages, because you might have another situation where you want a suggestion type just called mixers, but it doesn't necessarily have to be required. It might have a different association type. So that's why you might want to get as specific as you can with the name of the suggestion type. So for this one, I'm going to get very specific and call it a speaker package mixers suggestion type. So let's close the speaker package and reopen it so that that data will become available to us. And we will add the speaker package mixers suggestion type to the Mackie and to the Yamaha. And then let's just use the general signal cable suggestion type for the XLR cable. And before we go back to the quote and show the example, let's just double check that the signal cable suggestion type is doing what we want it to do. Right now it's set up to not be included in the price, but let's change that. So signal cable will be included in the price. It'll add as a child. It doesn't, well, let's say that it will be required just for the sake of this example, because if we're sending out a speaker package, then we'll need signal cable. So let's go back to our test quote, add the speaker package. And remember, by default, anything that we put in the Contents tab is automatically added. So you can see underneath the Suggestions window here, the 2 Mackie speakers were automatically added as children. First we'll start with a signal cable, and remember this is required. Let's say that it's a little bit of a longer run, so we're going to send 2 of the 50-foot. And then we'll go to the Mixers tab and say, for this one, let's just choose the Yamaha. Click Accept. And the suggestions have now added alongside with the contents. So those are just a few ways that you can use suggestions and suggestion types in your system. We did recently a best practices video that you can find on our YouTube page about virtual models and virtual packages. And it really will show the different ways that you can use suggestions and suggestion types. We have people that will build something like a breakout package or something like that will literally have 100 or 200 suggestions to it, and you're literally building a breakout room with just a single virtual item. And so you can see examples of that on our YouTube page with the best practices video of virtual models and virtual items. And if you have any other questions, feel free to visit our forum where you can find our webinars board and look for the webinar about suggestions and suggestion types. And also you can email support@flexrentalsolutions.com for more technical support.